Madison, Wisconsin is as good as it gets if you are like me and you love the college sports.
This is the Jump Around with Jim Rutledge and Pablo Iglesias, streaming live on the ESPN Madison YouTube channel.
Dancing down the sidelines. Can they catch him? No! The Badgers answer instantly. There will be no undefeated champion on Wisconsin with an unbelievable stretch drive to the championship game.
Gard again! Inside the 5, touchdown! What a performance by Melvin Gordon!
Chucky Hepburn, Big Ten on the line. Yes!
It's over. The Wisconsin Badgers win 17-9. They are the first Big Ten team ever to win successive Rose Bowl games.
That is the best college sports town in America.
Welcome into the Jump Around, a Badger-dedicated show live on ESPN Madison and ESPN Milwaukee's YouTube channels. I'm Jim Rutledge alongside Pablo Iglesias. We have a jam-packed show for you today as we have Matt Mitchell and Jeff Grimes joining the show today at 1 o'clock. So we got plenty to get into, lots of good interviews, lots to talk about, and even though it's a lot of football heavy for the interview side of things, Pablo, we are excited to talk about Badger basketball because they had one go against them against Indiana. Mm-hmm. The calls truly were not in the Badgers' favor. One of those you could say, all right, maybe, but both of them, it seemed I was more upset with the Nick Boyd charge call than I was even with the Blackwell foul, because at least Blackwell stepped on his foot, but I thought the charge was even worse. That aside, the Badgers rally back from that, and they go to Illinois, and in Champaign, they win 92-90 in overtime and showed a lot of grit.
Yeah, very excited that they were able to, bounce back the way that they did after, again, like I said this too in the in my social recap of this, which you can see on the ESPN Madison account, is that is the way that you bounce back after how bitter of a taste that the Saturday loss was to Indiana, and to do what Wisconsin did on Tuesday night at Illinois, and I've been at the State Farm Arena before too. That is not an easy place to win. No road. It's hard to have any type of road victory, let alone when they're a top 10 team in the nation. But for Wisconsin to do what they did, fresh off of the game that they had and the result that they had, even though they felt like that they had the opportunity in their hands at the end of the day. Greg Gard did even point out too, he didn't like the call, but you don't want to be in that situation either. Yeah. So how Wisconsin was able to bounce back and being down 12 at halftime at Illinois to force overtime to show that you had the stones, that it was just, nothing put fear in Wisconsin's mind in terms of how they were able to play. And one thing real quick too about what I felt like the big play of the game was actually the Nolan Winter hustle play off the missed free throw. He was able to extend his arms out. It looked like Illinois tried to save the ball, and he was able to corral that. And then, on top of getting the rebound, call a timeout at the last second. That is heads-up basketball. So not only was it the scoring effort from John Blackwell and Nick Boyd on Tuesday at Illinois, but I got to give up to the heads-up play too for Nolan Winter, and one of the big reasons, very unsung reason why they ended up winning this one.
Also interesting that it was pointed out by Greg Gard at his press conference that Austin Rapp made a major error that luckily did not cost the Badgers.
I didn't see that until after the fact, and they posted on social media. When it was tied in regulation, he was ripping at the ball. He was slapping the guy's arm. I was very, very grateful that did not get called.
The quote from Gard was, he did back off at the end because I was yelling at the top of my lungs. We didn't get burnt because of it, but we'll talk about it in film.
Yeah.
So...
it's going to be a fun session for sure.
Right.
100%.
Nobody's perfect. It just was an interesting thing that, to me, it says a lot about Gard as a coach, that he's willing to call out his player like that. It's a very professional way. There's nothing wrong with it. And it speaks to Rapp. I guess Gard believes that Rapp can handle that, but I think it's really good for accountability purposes. And so, I applaud it, but it was interesting. You don't see that too often.
He's definitely not like his successor in Bo Ryan. I feel like that from their coaching styles, they're pretty different. And we've actually got Ben Brusson here over the ESPN Madison office. I'm sure he could probably attest to that. But still, at the end of the day, I've really respected how Greg Gard is able to balance that tough love type of mentality for a head coach, where he is, again, able to make his coaches anybody really accountable. He's able to call people out. He's able to make sure that if they're not performing to the expectations that they need to, there's nothing wrong with that. You got to call the guys out. You got to be upfront about it. You got to make sure that if you want to be a team that's playing deep into March and, heck, even just make it to the second weekend, which is what we've wanted this team to do for a very long time, you got to make sure that you're also tough on these guys, too.
Are you implying that Bo Ryan was a sweetheart to play for?
Bo Ryan was a sweet... No, I'm saying... I mean, from what we had heard of the stories, at least, especially from Made 'Em Believe last year, that Bo was not afraid, especially on day one, to let you know how he felt. My favorite story was the Sam Decker one when they got like a bunch of new Adidas gear, and he started. I think Sam wore the leggings under the shorts, and Bo was going after him, saying, "My niece wears these at ballet," and Sam's like, "I don't care." But that, I think, just seeing the contrasts of who they are. But again,
there's not. That's why I was curious because like Gard, yes, he didn't attack personally, but Gard did something I think Bo Ryan would do. One is screaming at the player, "Do not foul," and then holding the player accountable. So I do think he picked up some things from Bo Ryan in there as well. That's why I was confused because I thought what Gard did was very Bo Ryan esque in that specific point. Now Bo. On the overall side of things, Gard's role, I think, with the Bo Ryan teams was to be the good cop to Bo Ryan's bad cop. But I think Gard now can be a little bit more bad cop and let Krabbenhoff or someone else be the Davidson or whatever be the good cop there.
Sharif Chambliss, too, probably.
Yeah.
I feel like Sharif is definitely good cop in this situation.
Probably. All right, and I want to talk about Nick Boyd, who we've been on from the beginning. We had Ken Levicka from Florida Atlantic University, the play-by-play guy for the FAU Owls when Nick Boyd was a part of the Final Four team that FAU had a couple years ago. And Levicka wrote the letter recommendation for Nick Boyd to get into grad school at San Diego State. And he told us, Nick Boyd is a dog. Like, he's going to come in here. He's going to be that guy. Ben Brust told us very early on that Nick Boyd, what he was hearing, was the type of point guard that the Badgers didn't have last year, that Tanjay and Blackwell were more scoring guards than point guards. And then lo and behold, Nick Boyd has 15 20-point games this year. And that is, third most already since 2000. He is tied with Alonzo Tucker and Jordan Taylor. This is for a single season, and John Tanjay. So he is very likely to pass John Tanjay for most 20-point games in a season by a Wisconsin player, even though he is more of a true lead guard, a point guard there. Johnny Davis was 16, Frank Kaminsky was 17, and Alonzo Tucker at 19 games of 20 points or more are all on notice. I wouldn't be surprised if he passes Johnny Davis and falls somewhere either tied with Frank Kaminsky or right behind Alonzo Tucker, either at 17 or 18.
Yeah, and is it just me, or has he done this so quietly?
Yes.
I feel like there's been absolutely zero press for the level of play we have seen from Nick Boyd. He just does it and I feel like he doesn't even play that quiet either. Like, he's very emotional. He's very in your face. Like, he celebrates his teammates. He is on top of everything. But for some reason, it's not getting the media attention it deserves. So that's kind of been confusing to me, but I'm okay with it if it keeps the Badgers under the radar heading into the tournament.
That's what matters at the end of the day, as long as it's helping you get wins. And I feel like that Nick Boyd is a guy, not only is he going to be one of the tops at the scoring column, but he's also making this team a lot better. Looking at how he was able to move in transition, it really looked like at first there was one possession, I can't remember exactly where it was in the game, but it kind of looked like a tic-tac-toe back and forth between he and John Blackwell, and then they met in the corner, they passed it off, and all of a sudden then Austin Rapp was open at the top of the key. How the heck that happened all of a sudden was beyond me, but everybody was just watching Blackwell and Boyd, so that's just another thing where, yes, he is a top-tier scorer from a point guard standpoint, but again, he makes his team a lot better, and like we said, Riley, as long as it's resulting in wins, that's all that matters to me, but it's how... not flawless, but it's the effortless energy, too. I remember the second game of the season that I got to see him in person. He just goes coast to coast, and it's the confidence that he carries. Greg Gard also called him out, too, saying that he was upset that he was blocked late in the game for trying to drive into a layup, and Gard's like, well, what do you expect? It's a 7-footer that's on you. I think at some point the odds are you getting blocked might be pretty high, but again, he's a guy that just really brings that electric energy. He's passionate, he's fiery, and he clearly wants to win. win. So I love what he's brought to the Badgers. I wish the only downside is I wish we had him for a little longer.
Now, one more thing before we get to our big question of the day. From the YouTube chat, have a little interaction today. I'll start with you, Jim. He asks, how confident are you versus Sparty? Big game tomorrow, number 10, Michigan State comes to the Kohl Center. How confident are you feeling about the game tomorrow?
I'm confident the Badgers won't be embarrassed. Like, I think they're going to have I think they're going to give Sparty all that they want. Confident in a victory, I would call that a coin flip because it's at the Kohl Center, so I'll call it 50-50, but I'm very confident that the Badgers are going to be in this game with an opportunity to win it with less than 3 minutes to go.
The Badgers have gotten bullied by Michigan State a few times when I've seen them at the Kohl Center, but don't allow that to get into your head. I mean, it's probably going to be a little bit more of a grittier performance than what we're used to seeing. I don't think that this game reaches both teams scoring in the 80s or the 90s. I feel like that this is going to be like your standard Tom Izzo slugfest type of team where, again, don't let them bully you too much because also the Johnny Davis season, they stole that win over at the Breslin Center. So it's very easy. I wouldn't say very easy. Let me take that back. It is possible to beat this team. If you could go in and, again, own two of the best wins I believe, in college basketball on the road against Michigan, against Illinois, two top 10 teams, I feel pretty good about Wisconsin going in there, having this opportunity at home. It's going to take a good amount. You can't make any mistakes, don't get me wrong, but I feel pretty good about them going into this game.
Yeah, for me, I'm confident in two things. One, that they're going to get down by double digits at some point in this game because that's just what they do, and that they're going to come all the way back. I'm not guaranteeing a win, but I, like you, Jim, I am very confident that this is going to be a game right down to the wire, and they have a chance to get their third top 10 victory this season. So that's how I'm feeling.
That's a good way to segue into the idea of that would probably solidify the Badgers.
Oh, 100%.
Opportunity to go to the NCAA tournament. And with that, we wanted to ask this question. Is it more likely that Wisconsin makes the Sweet 16 or misses the tournament? We do have this posted at ESPN Madison's Twitter account there, but is it more likely Wisconsin makes the Sweet 16 or misses the tournament? And we asked that because, they're at 17 wins right now. They would need to win 3 out of their last 5 to get to that, what I think is a magical, you have to be a number of 20. I don't think they have to have 20 to get in, but if you get 20 and you're in the Big Ten, and that would probably put them in the top 5 or 6, you can't deny the Badgers. But they do have Michigan State. They do have Purdue. And I wouldn't call Iowa or even Washington easy on the schedule there. So they do have some tough games in front of them. They still have work to do. Plus the Big Ten tournament, I don't think they can just show up and lose that first game. All that being said, I think they're going to make the tournament. And the way that they finish off this regular season here still has me believing that they're going to be a Sweet 16 team. So because they're going to be good enough to make the tournament, which means they have to close out the season strong, shows me that they are clicking at the right time and that they will end up as a Sweet 16 team.
Yeah, 17-7 just to put that out there. And this feels like that there are a lot of winnable games in there to get to that, as you said, Jim, the sweet spot of 20 wins. Again, this is going to be a big one with Michigan State tomorrow night, but with Purdue ending in the season too, anything is possible. No, this team can beat anyone, and I believe that. They've shown that they can really play with some of the best in the country, not just some of the best of the Big Ten, which honestly this conference right now has felt like a true slugfest. You've got Nebraska, you've got Purdue, you've got all these top-tier teams that Wisconsin can hang with. Now, just the question that I have for this team is, can they keep this consistent string going? I've talked about this all season. I think that they are finally playing the ball that we expect them to. Are they playing completely perfect? No, but they are significantly better in a better spot than how I felt maybe, honestly, a couple weeks ago. So I do feel like that the only issue, the only small thing that I see is where they would be seated, because I think right now, unless they go perfect the rest of the season and, heck, make a decent run even into the semifinals, I'd say, at the Big Ten tournament, you're probably looking at an 8 or 9 seed. And even if you do advance into that game, you're looking at playing the number 1, which all the number 1s right now look pretty tough in the NCAA tournament if you want to make it to that second weekend. Anything's possible. Again, don't get me wrong. Always the eternal optimist out here. But that's where I feel this Wisconsin team is. It's just some of the wins some of the games that they had earlier, the Villanova loss and also the BYU loss, that's probably going to hurt their resume in terms of seeding.
So wait, did you answer it though? More likely to miss the tournament or make Sweet 16?
Sweet 16.
Okay.
Sweet 16, 100%.
Yeah, I guess we're all in agreement then. I think it's more likely that they make the Sweet 16. Even if the Badgers get pasted by Sparty tomorrow, then you have Ohio State, should be a win. Iowa, right at the same level, Wisconsin, but it's at the Kohl Center, should be a win. Oregon on the road, should be be a win. Washington on the road, I feel like that's going to be a toss-up. Should be a win, though. Let's go 4-1, then Maryland at home. You go 5-1. You win a game or two in the Big Ten tournament. You're probably still you hang around your spot firmly inside the bubble, but not moving past that 8 or 9 seed line, like you said, Pablo. And that's my biggest concern because the 1 seeds look fantastic. But when was the last time a Greg Gard-led team made the Sweet 16?
Is it 2016, right?
No, it was actually 2017, so that defeats my purpose. But it defeats the whole point of my argument. But the second to last time a Greg Gard-led team made the Sweet 16, they knocked off the defending national champions in Villanova. So it's possible. It is possible. I would be much more confident and more comfortable if the Badgers were able to squeak into a 7 or 6 seed, because the 2 seeds, like Michigan's on the 2 line right now. Wisconsin's proven they can beat that caliber of team. So that would make me a lot more comfortable. But even if they remain on the 8 or 9 line, I think it's more likely that they make the Sweet 16, simply because I think there's no way with how they're playing right now that they miss the tournament.
All right, let's get to our clip of the week.
Around these parts, there's only time for the best of the Badgers.
We don't know exactly where we are right now.
Why don't you own the Wisconsin football team?
We need to play better significantly.
They're spoiled rotten.
This is the clip of the week on the Jump Around.
Go someplace else. Go boo in a bar.
Yeah, it is time for the clip of the week, and we're sticking with basketball here. I don't know if you guys saw this, but some elite-level trolling from the Wisconsin Badgers and specifically head coach Greg Gard. Here is him post-game and the speech he gave to his guys. I want your thoughts on this.
Battled. You out-rebounded them. We kept them off the glass. You know that with 8 offensive rebounds. On the glass. These guys. We got it. Yeah. It tells you again who we are. Right? There's no going back now. We know who we are. Right? No steps backwards after that we've gone through before. Saturday wasn't a step backwards, but just understand you guys know how good you guys are. Oh yeah! Let's hear it. 1, 2, 3.
Woo! I love it. I think it's a great way, obviously, for him to connect to his players. The WIG. So it was WIG night at the Illinois game?
Yes, there was a giveaway for all the students that it was supposed to mimic that like strawberry blonde hair of one of their players.
Okay, because that's the one question I had on that. So I think that's great. I think it's a perfect level of trolling for Greg Gard. It's not like too disrespectful. He's aware that it's going to end up on social media because the social media team is there taping it. It's something I think you see coaches do for a long time, just hasn't been taped. So I love it. I love the way that he gets the reaction of his players. It's genuine when they're happy to see him come in like that. And so I think for a coach in this day and age, creating culture and doing those sorts of things, I thought it was great that Greg Gard did that.
I think it's a nice little subtle play into if John Blackwell is going to go on the national interviews and call themselves like, hey, let's be the villains and keep that mantra going, keep that attitude going. I think it's a little fun. I don't know if Greg Gard would necessarily say that's a villain type of move, but if he wants to play in a little bit, it's like, hey, let's have some fun too. Let's celebrate this win. I know that these guys are going to get fired up. I love it. It's what keeps the competitive energy going. It's what keeps a competitive spirit. And you saw, too, that him and Brad Underwood shook hands. They smiled after the game, too. They know that was a hard-fought game. Everybody could say in the stands that, oh, this is this or this is that, but everybody respects everybody at the end of the day when it comes to this.
Yeah, and I think Greg Gard has a lot of respect amongst Big Ten coaches as
100%.
well, so he can get away with this kind of thing. And I love what he said near the end of that clip, saying that there's no steps backwards now. You have to be as good as we think you can be. And I think the Badgers, now is the perfect time for them to round into form, and they're doing it with these big wins. So I was fired up.
All right, now it's time to enter the portal.
It's time for the Badgers Twitter portal.
Yeah, it is. And let's start. What should we start with today? How about, this is on me. I didn't even put them on the form. However, I will stall as I get this on the screen here. So,
while you wait for that, I can just tell everyone about Steinhafels. Get a little early, tell everyone about what's going on at their latest sale if you want to do that.
All right, that'll work better as I fix the
I had a great
stream here.
experience over at Steinhafels, and you can too, so make sure to go to Steinhafels and check out their latest sale that they have going on at Steinhafels. I'll tell you more about it when we actually have the guest on the air. But
President's Day, I believe,
yes,
right?
I bought a recliner for the bedroom, and then I bought a Lazy Boy love seat recliner thing, and then I also bought a new desk.
I am moving or plan to move soon too, so I might have to stop at Steinhafels, see exactly what some extra things I could do to the new apartment. So I should definitely want to swing over this weekend. We'll see what's out there.
Yeah, you guys have to stop at Steinhafels, and college basketball is stopping in Rome next year. Jack Sobel, college basketball is already holy, but Notre Dame and Villanova taking it to the next level. Per CBS Sports, the Irish and Wildcats are set to open the 26-27 season in Rome, Italy, in a matchup inspired by Pope Leo. Pope Leo, native of Chicago, is a Villanova alum. So, would a basketball game in Rome, Italy, in St. Peter's Square, would that be the greatest venue for a college basketball game of all time?
It's the perfect matchup for sure for Notre Dame and Villanova. That's for darn sure. I think this one goes right over the top compared to when they did it on the aircraft in San Diego, but the only issue was because of they were over water, there was a lot of condensation, so the court was slippery. All in all, from a visual standpoint, it's cool. From a safety, maybe not. I'm assuming they're playing indoors, or I don't think they're playing.
Not sure. If they played in St. Peter's Square, that would rock.
That
With
would be
Pope
insane.
Leo overlooking, that would be the best.
An outdoor venue for that would be electric. That would definitely give it a clear number one if it's for that.
Yeah, I think for a non-traditional venue, number one. Like, if you're a purist, you might would love to see, something in UCLA or Kentucky. Some of those, obviously Madison Square Garden, obviously it's an NBA arena, but something there. But for a non-traditional arena, unparalleled.
Yes.
Without a doubt. I think a great place to watch the game. That's unique. That's awesome.
Yeah, now one more before we get to our interviews with Matt Mitchell and Jeff Grimes. From Ryan Herrings of Locked On Badgers. I like this question. Which is your favorite? Simply listing all the helmets for the University of Wisconsin. I know it's a little tough to see, but all time, what is your favorite Wisconsin Badgers football helmet that they have ever worn? I'll leave it on the screen for a few more minutes.
I'm looking at the bottom row middle. Is that the one that they wore at Soldier Field?
Yep, the forward.
I loved those uniforms in general. I wish we had a better result when Wisconsin wore those, but those were a sweet uniform design, and I loved the helmet behind it too.
Yeah, I'm old and I can't do it. But if you go, I can't read.
We didn't call you out on it, man.
I would go the fourth row down in the middle, the Cardinal helmet with the W, but it's like a black mask and a black outline to it. Those would be my favorite. I still would love this. I do like, and I wouldn't mind. I would love to see something similar, but with the Bucky on it. I know there's one in the middle on the top row that has Bucky on it, but maybe it's Bucky outlined in black, and so he pops a little bit more. But yeah, I think a little bit of that, or Matt Black with Bucky in red.
Riley, could you push for an all-black uniform or something? We need to get
I've
these
been trying,
one
man.
of these days.
A
blackout?
I tried. I'm doing my part. I talked to the associate athletic director. I forgot his name, but who is in charge. Pinta, I believe, is his last name. I forgot his first name. But last Fickle press conference, he came up and gave a talk about the new Under Armour deal.
Yeah.
So after the press conference, I went up to him and asked him, what's the deal with these alternate uniforms? How many is the football team getting? How many is the basketball team getting? He's like, I can't tell you specifics, but just know they're in the works. We have to do this ahead of time. The throwback from last year was in the works for a while, I think when Luke Fickell first got here. So I can confirm there are things in the works, but I have no idea what they are, and I'm trying my best to push for more Bucky. Last year, I pushed for Bucky on the sleeves. Lo and behold, we got it. That was all luck. It had nothing to do with me. But now we got to push for Bucky on the helmet. That's got to be next. We need something cool. They're guaranteed to get new uniforms for the Shamrock Series game this year at Lambeau Field. Please just incorporate Bucky. That's all I ask.
Our investigative journalist right here, getting down to the facts. Riley Yauk, you love to see it.
Trying my best. And that's it for the Twitter portal.
All right, now we're going to move on to our interviews with Matt Mitchell and Jeff Grimes. But first, Steinhaffel's President's 5-day sale is happening now. And the furniture and mattress savings are really good. Start with 10% off store-wide. Then you'll get $50 off every $4.99 you spend, plus doorbusters. You've got to see in person. If you're financing, this is huge. 60 months with no interest until 2031. When you spend over $1,999. Plus, you'll get a $200 MasterCard reward card. It's only 5 days only, so don't wait. Only at Steinhaffel's. This is the Jump Around. We're going to be joined now by Matt Mitchell and then Jeff Grimes.
I'm already looking at stuff, too, on Steinhaffel's.
Good evening, everyone.
George, I am getting word of something very big happening right now at Steinhaffel's.
It looks like a President's Day sale to me, Abe.
Indeed. I am being told that everyone will get $50 off for every $499 they spend.
Plus, amazing doorbusters throughout the store.
And no interest until 2031. And a $200 MasterCard when you finance $1,999 or more.
Folks, this is monumental.
We may never see anything like it again. Steinhaffel's President's Day sale. Don't miss it.
We are thrilled to be joined by Badgers, a man of many hats with Matt Mitchell. We'll get to his titles in a minute. But Wisconsin football season tickets are on sale now, and buying season tickets gives fans the best chance to see Badgers take on Notre Dame at Lambeau Field in the season opener. So visit uwbadgers.com for details. Coach, thanks so much for joining us today. I know you're a special teams coordinator along with some linebacking coaching there. I want to start with welcoming you to the show. And how is the offseason going?
It's going good. You know, it's exciting to get back in here. Obviously, January, spent a lot of time on the road recruiting high school guys, but now we've got a pretty big group of new players into Wisconsin football. So you're trying to blend those returners that you've got back with some of these new faces, and we're working to try to build a team.
Yeah, Coach, third season, or you're heading into 3 seasons so far under the belt here with the crew. You spent 13 over at Grand Valley State. I know that I'm just, brushing up on everything now. The opportunity to come here, to get to be a part of this, what have you learned over the last few years, going from the head coaching role into more of the special teams, position coach experience that you've had over the last few years here at Wisconsin?
Yeah, actually heading into my 4th year here, so yes. It's been it's been it's a different focus. I mean, I think anytime you're a coach, there's a lot of intensity to it. It's just a matter of what the focus was. Obviously, when you're a head coach, you got 120 guys, strength staff, assistant coaches, more of a 30,000-foot view, and now I'm really down kind of in the weeds, Starts with my position group. I mean, my primary thing is coaching those edge guys, the outside linebackers here at Wisconsin, and I take a lot of pride in that just because there's been a huge history and tradition of edge play here at Wisconsin. And then branching out to, work on the special teams. Obviously Coach Fickle's very involved in special teams too, but working on that piece too. So, yeah, wearing some different hats. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest difference is just the focus, where you put your energy, where you put your time, your teaching, your coaching. It's just a little bit different focus than being a head coach.
And, with the special team side of it, Brad Nortman is a host on our show, and or on our air, and he's talked a lot about that. Obviously, when you play for the Badgers, you have special teams coaching, but you also have on your way up and on the side, same thing with quarterbacks, special kicking coaching, special punting coaching. So how much do you work with those specific coaches along with the players, and how much do you work on kicking and punting mechanics, for lack of a better word, with those sort of positions?
Yeah, so here's the thing about specialists. I mean, first of all, I think we've been pretty blessed here the last, few years that we've had here at Wisconsin. We've had some good specialists. I think when Nathaniel Vakos did last year, we dang near had a 100% touchback rate. And there was sometimes some inconsistency on some field goals, but towards the end of the year, we really finished strong. And then Sean West coming on, and we had a really good transfer long snapper last year, Nick Levy. My experience was a lot of those times, those guys are they're a little bit like golfers. They know their swings and they know their strengths and weaknesses. And I think by the time I get to college, some of the the best coaches don't mess them too much. We do have a special teams analyst that spends a little bit more time on an individual basis with some of the techniques and fundamentals. And so it's kind of really their position coach, quote unquote. But we have some guys that have been, whether transfers or experienced players, that we look to that. And next year I'm really looking forward to seeing Gavin Lom. Gavin Lom did a pretty unselfish thing last year. He's a Wisconsin dude, and When Vakos was coming on to fall camp, we asked Gavin to redshirt. I mean, obviously, you guys know 2 years ago, Gavin was our kickoff guy, so he'll be back here, as the primary guy. It's kind of his spot to lose in terms of the kickoff, extra point field goals. And Sean West came on big time last year for us as a punter. Also, he can incorporate a lot of different fakes because he's a good athlete and played well down the stretch for us. And then, we had to get a transfer long snapper, and so we were able to get a guy that was an All-American from Toledo. And so, those guys, it helps to have experience in that room. And I do feel like heading into 2026, that room does have some experience.
Matt, I'd love to touch on, too, you mentioned the transfers and the experience and having that twofold for the outside linebacker position, working with guys like Mason Reiger and also seeing Daryl Peterson work at those high levels. And especially for Daryl, too, the way that the season ended for him seemed like his stock only started to go up in those big games. For those two guys, and also seeing Mason get the Shrine Bowl defensive MVP, what was it like being in the room with those guys, and how are they leaders?
I tell you, there's a dichotomy in this. Our team results are not where we want them to be. I'm sure not where anybody wants them to be. But, personally, I had probably as enjoyable a year of coaching just on, from an outside backer edge as I ever had. And it was mainly because of those two guys. I had a great room last year. And I think it's kind of a little bit of a microcosm of college football. You've got one guy that's a Badger through and through, Daryl Peterson. That I was really proud to be a part of his journey. And as you mentioned, he made a big jump from his junior to senior year. And it's kind of something you've got to have. You got to preach. You've got to have guys in your program that develop and continue to get better. And that's really what Daryl Peterson did. I think we made some schematic changes defensively that played to his skill sets, which allowed him to have a little bit more success. But obviously finished strong. Like you said, he was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week against Illinois when he had those 3 sacks. And, I'm hearing some chatter about him, from some NFL scouts. There's going to be some stuff in regards to his length and a few things they're probably going to knock against him at times. And then, the flip side of the coin is transfers. And Mason Reiger was, you're hoping to strike gold in the transfer portal. And I definitely feel with that one, we did hit. We did hit. And that was, I'd obviously seen him, as you go through this portal deal, you're doing a lot of evaluations, a tremendous amount of evaluations. And his production back in 23 when he was at a previous institution was good. And I loved him. He's obviously a Chicagoland kid, close to Madison, 2.5-hour drive. So it's a geographic connection, but there's also a play style connection. I knew that I wanted to coach a guy like that just in terms of how hard he played and how much he was passionate about football. And so even though he missed 2024, I thought we did a job, medical team, strength and conditioning team, position coach. It was an acceptable risk, and that risk paid off. But, one thing both guys had in common was, their passion for the game of football, which can't be overstated, especially in this day and age. You got to have guys that love to play the sport. And then their preparation. I mean, those guys were as good as any players I've had in 25 years of coaching football in regards to their preparation towards contests and the work that they put in, just the game plan process, understanding a lot of things that go on. I mean, edges, we're talking about tight end alignments, tailback alignments, tackle sets. Those guys really put in a lot of work, and I think their preparation really helped them perform on Saturdays. Along, some obviously physical talent and some other things going in there too, but that was great. And then just to see what's happened with Mason to kind of finish off your question, it's been exciting. I was able to go down to one of the practices down at the East-West Shrine game down in Dallas, and I saw the way he was practicing and just heard, he stacked 3 great practices in a row. And then Coach Fickle was able to get down there and be at the game and was present. I was on the road recruiting some high school guys, but Coach Fickle was there. We had the 3 sacks, the strip sack. And, I think that weekend, along with his production here for the Badgers in the fall, is really raising him up from what I'm hearing. And I'm excited to see him go down and compete at the Combine and see what kind of numbers he puts up and see how that process, along with the interviews and the medical, to be transparent. He's going to have to do some medical stuff and go through that medical piece of things. I'm hearing 3rd, 4th, and some of the stuff that I'm hearing back from some people, and it'll probably be based on medical more than anything to kind of see where he ends up.
And then that kind of continues a nice run here. Wisconsin has been RBU for a long time. Linebacker U is kind of the next step here. There's been a long list of linebackers. I do think some of the recruiting within the state, just the way that a lot of these high schools play, their best athletes are quarterbacks, and you can transfer them to linebacker or running back to linebacker. It lends itself for good recruiting out there. We've seen it over the years here at Wisconsin. But who can we look forward to as we talk about 2 players who are obviously moving on to the next level?
Yeah, you're talking about guys that are coming for 26?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to, to me, it's got to start with Sebastian Cheeks. Played a lot of snaps for us and was productive. I'm looking at him to take the next step that Daryl Peterson took just in terms of like that production and leadership from his junior to his senior years, no doubt about that. Tyrese Fearby has a lot of talent, and it's my job to try to get that equated to production on the field. There was some, and I've talked about him, there was some highs and lows last season, and trust is a big deal with me as a position coach, and so we've got to make sure that we can trust that, things are happening right. I was fortunate last year that a few of these guys I'm going to talk about probably should have played a little bit more, but I was pretty injury free, and it was really hard not to have Mason on the field or not to have Daryl Peterson on the field, especially with kind of how things are going within our team. And you knew that every defensive series was really critical just based on the way the team was kind of performing. But, guys that did play, like I said, Sebastian, but I think I had 3 names that were here last year, probably should have played more but didn't because of the depth of the room would be, Tyrese Fearby, Mike Garner. Nick Clayton was a true freshman that probably earned the right to play a little bit more. He's got high pass rush upside. He played on every single special teams. I made the decision not to redshirt him. I wanted to play and get Big Ten experience so it could kind of catapult him into this 26 season. And probably should have played more, if you guys look at what happened with Cooper Catalano when one of the other inside linebackers was down with an injury and he kind of burst on the scene from just being a third down guy to an every down guy. Same thing with Cooper Catalano. He didn't start the season at Mike, but ended up playing. I really believe Nick Clayton is in that category of types of players. And, look at them and some younger guys that got to develop. And then, took 3 transfers. Probably the one that intrigues me most right now is Justice Boone, who was down at Arkansas. I think they're playing him a little bit out of position, so I'm going to get him back to a 5 technique, and he's weighing 270 pounds and can really be in the boundary and do a really good job, kind of like DP did, and try to impact things. And there's the kid I recruited hard out of high school that chose Tennessee that I got on the bounce back named Jaden Lofton that I'm encouraged with what he's doing. And then kind of, took a guy from Division III and Liam Danitz, who had 15 sacks in Division III, was an All-American track, 29-2 in the 200. And this will be a jump going from Division III to Big Ten, but he's got some twitch and some get off. So, guys, in a short story, I got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do to figure out who the pieces are going to be, and it's going to be earned. But I at least feel like, whether it's some transfers coming from SEC or a Division III transfer or younger players in the room that need to develop up. I mean, there's a good group to work with and select from, but you know what? You are what you put on tape. And when these guys are going to have to go through spring ball and earn the right to play by the production they put on tape.
Matt, before spring ball kicks off, I'm curious. You brought up some points, too, of saying that when you got to go to the practices and get to see Mason, then it was going on to the recruiting trail. Ballpark, what's the ratio of, especially at this time of the year, when you're in Madison and then you're on the recruiting trail? What does that life look like? I can't really ask what a normal day looks like because I feel like every 24-hour cycle is different. But the ratio to start there from being in Madison to
January.
Being on the road.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. January and May, not a lot of time spent in your own bed. A lot of flights going and checking things out and doing things like that. The month of February, March, and April, it's really you have to find that balance. Like we're in here watching self-scout of the things that we did well defensively. Obviously, strength and conditioning is starting to have meetings with players and starting to go through installs to prep those guys for spring ball. But you got to balance that too with right now the 2027 recruiting and. I would say this, can't mention names, but it's pretty exciting class in the state of Wisconsin in 2027 to arguably probably the best, from a talent standpoint since, I showed 4 years ago in a recruiting cycle. I think you're seeing more. We've got a couple early commits and we're working really hard to try to close out some of these best prospects we have in Wisconsin. So for us, it starts in Wisconsin. And then it branches out from there. But, yeah, in terms of time, you're balancing things the best you can. I would say that's during the day, a lot of current Badger football. And then at nights, whether Zooms or phone calls, a lot of future Badger football.
Oh, Coach, I love the tease there. Would love to hear the names, but we'll make sure we keep our eyes peeled.
Yeah, you can Google it. It's not too hard. It's not too hard to figure out. So,
cool. Well, follow up on this too, Coach. Again, making the jump that you did from Division II, you were the head coach, I believe, for 13 seasons, if I'm correct, over at Grand Valley. Again, the leap that it takes. Again, a lot of people would say too, playing at different levels, it's a different game. But I feel like I've heard the flip flop too of it's still football at the end of the day. The challenges that you face, but also the comparisons too from jumping from one level to the next.
Yeah, I would say people are still people. People are still people, and the one thing I've always said, maybe we're different here in Wisconsin than some other places, but you guys everybody's in tune. There's a lot going on with, money, rev share, NLI. There's a lot of things going on. I can be straight up honest with you. I haven't really seen that impact the people that we've had in the building in terms of how they work and approach things. And so, when it comes to like working with people, the 18 to 22, 23-year-old male that we work with and the guys we work with, the guys here are bigger, faster, they're more talented, all that stuff. But when you look at the human element, the human side, there's not that much differences when you take a look at Division II to the FBS in regards to people, in terms of how to coach them, motivate them, get the best out of them, in regards to just coaching, the coaching aspect. And even from a football standpoint, it's still about, striking guys and getting off blocks and rushing the passer. And again, it's higher level athlete, but some of the fundamentals still kind of carry over as you move forward. I think the biggest difference is just the resources, the resources that are available here. I mean, our strength staff, our nutritionists, the academic support, all those people, because when you're at lower levels, you don't have those people. So consequently, as a coach, you got to be an academic counselor. You got to try to, counsel guys in regards to proper sleep and nutrition. You typically have one strength coach, whereas here it feels like we have like 8 of them, and so it's just resources to be able to develop players and get the most out of players, I think, is probably the biggest difference. And then, we saw, down there was some really competitive offenses schematically and things like that. I think the other difference probably too is week in, week out. I mean, this the competition week in, week out in the Big Ten. I've always said this: the SEC has some good schools, but their bad schools are bad. And even in the Big Ten, like, you don't see that necessarily that week to week. You don't see that massive drop off in regards to whether it's talent, schematics, or those type of things. And so, I mean, week in, week out, there's definitely some challenges. Where sometimes in Division II, you didn't have that same level of competition from a week in, week out basis.
The last thing I have for you here is, as far as like the special teams, everyone focuses on obviously kickers, punters, and the returners, but the actual everyone else is part of that roster. I think it's a great way for players to be developed. I think some Badger fans will remember Chris Borland got his start as a special teams guy, then got a little bit on third down, and then became Chris Borland all in one season as a freshman here. So how do you balance the development of people on special teams, and then how do you kind of figure out who's going to be maybe your special teams ace for the whole season, and then kind of coach them into being excited about that? Because it might be easier almost in the pros to get someone who's collecting a big paycheck to be special teams, and this is their way to be in the league, as opposed to a college kid who probably has aspirations of being a star and being in the NFL one day. How do you kind of balance those expectations and treat it as a learning experience for them?
Yeah, obviously, great question. All your guys' questions have been great, but that one was especially great. I think it first of all starts with the culture, and I think what's unique about Wisconsin is that it starts with Luke Fickell. I mean, he's heavily involved. He runs the punt. He's heavily involved in special teams. So if you're on a squad, you're not involved in special teams, probably not going to sit real well with the guy, sitting in the head coaching chair. So it's got to start with that. I think the other thing, on successful special teams play, I think you have 2 types of players. First of all, you've got some guys that really, that's probably their backups on offense and defense, but they're starters on special teams, and they embrace that role. I think about Grover Bortolotti last year. I think about Owen Arnett. We've had a history and tradition here at Wisconsin of some really in-state, high-quality walk-ons that bleed the Wisconsin red and have pride in wearing the Motion W, and you need that on a football team, a flagship football team in the state. And so you find those guys that really want to do that and want to be a part of that, And then second thing, I think Coach Fickell tries to have, if you start on, offense or defense, you've got to contribute at least one special teams. But the other thing is, as you mentioned, finding those younger guys, like I pointed to Nick Clayton. Okay, so great fall, great spring ball, early enrollee, great fall camp. Wasn't quite at the Sebastian Cheeks, Mason Rieger, Daryl Peterson level, but started on all 4 special teams. He had a big kickoff coverage against Minnesota, against Coy Parrish, who's a good player in our league. And I think that's how, to your point that you made earlier in the question, I think that's how with younger players you can develop some confidence. Put them in those specific situations, a one play down, and have the opportunities to use fundamentals and techniques to kind of have that. So it's, it takes different types of guys. But I'll point to, you have to have some guys that maybe aren't starters on offense and defense, but play on 3 or 4 special teams that just love it and embrace that stuff. And we've been fortunate here. We've had some walk-ons that have been able to really embrace that stuff. And we've propped those up. And so when you got a guy that's not getting any rev share NLI, and a guy that's not really getting anything from a scholarship standpoint is still going out and bleeding it, I think that could be really beneficial for your team culture. And, one last point I want to make is, this even gets back to Mason Rieger and Daryl Peterson, but also some of these guys you talked about. I mean, you guys were there. The month of October was not ideal for us. That was a rough month. Yeah. I do think the fact that we're able to, upset Washington at home and upset Illinois at home and win those games, I think does speak to the character of the people that we had in our building. And there were several guys, as I've mentioned some of those names I've talked about, I think they held the foundation and things there. I've been coaching for 25 years. Things could have not gone that way. The fact that we had those wins towards the end of the season and some of that performance, I think more than anything speaks to the character of the people that you have in the building, and sometimes the special teams performance, where you prop those guys up, that can reinforce some of those, what I call TNTs, the things that take no talent, that are able to be a big part of the foundation of your football team.
Coach, last one for me, too. I know that Coach Tressel has Madtown Mayhem. I believe Coach Guyton has we don't say almost in our room. What is the mantra in your room whenever the guys step in, whether it's the linebackers or special team? Do you have one that you usually share with them?
Yeah, I do. I got two. So for the edge guys, our mantra is choose effort and choose violence. That's our deal. So, we're going to play hard. And luckily last year I had two dudes that played as hard as anybody. And that effort really served them well. And then you got to be violent. It's a kind of a harsh term, but it is what it is. It's life in the Big Ten. You got to be violent. So the outside back room is choose effort, choose violence, and then what we say on special teams is chaos. We want to try to create chaos. That field is 53 1/3 wide. There's a lot of space, so we want to try to put a lot of pressure on people in our coverages, and then obviously we're going to try to be disruptive. In some of our return units with the punt block stuff and the kickoff return, and that's one thing I am going to miss. Vinny Anthony, who was down at the Senior Bowl.
Yep.
Vinny Anthony was, a really, really, really productive kickoff returner if you dig into the stats. The last couple of years, he was really productive as a kickoff returner. And so we're going to have to try to replace some of the returns too, but we're just trying to create chaos. That's what special teams is. There's a lot of space. There's a lot of moving bodies. It's a chaotic play. We're trying to create it and not take it on.
Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully a chance to catch up maybe while you guys are getting ready for the season in the spring or the fall. We appreciate it.
Love it. Anytime. Appreciate your time, guys.
All right, that's Matt Mitchell, special teams and outside linebacker coach with the Wisconsin Badgers. This is the Jump Around. All right. We are thrilled to be joined by Badger offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes. And, Coach, we appreciate I don't want to call this the offseason because I feel like for college coaches especially there is no offseason. It's just the not coaching football season for you, and maybe it's more the recruiting season for you. So how are your days? How are you spending your days recently, and how's the off of football season been going for you?
You know what? We live an unusual life, but one of the things I like about it and appreciate is the fact that every year has different phases, and so you have the season, and then you have I guess what you referred to as the not coaching football season, but there's more phases than that because you immediately jump into recruiting now. And, obviously that's way different than it used to be. It used to be that you would recruit all spring and you would spend time in summer leading up to fall visits and December and January commitments and all that. And now you're spending all of your time in December and January getting ready to bring in your new team. And then once you finish that, then you get to spend time with those guys, and that's where we are now. So we're in that time where we get to know our new guys and spend time working a little bit of football and getting ready for spring ball, and then you have spring ball in the summer, and then you're into the season again. But I enjoy the season that we're in right now, the phase that we're in, whatever you want to call that, because we're actually getting an opportunity to play with our new toys.
Love it, Coach. Appreciate your time again. We talked to Coach Mitchell too a little bit about this time of the year. Again, you mentioned there's not really any off days. It's different transitions more so. But especially this time of year, was curious to get to hear your side of it. How often are you in Madison around this time of the year? How often are you on the recruiting trail or making visits left and right? What's if you could give me a split ratio of how often you're in Madison versus being on the road recruiting, whatever the case is?
Yeah, well, we're done being on the road, and so that part is behind us. Not too long after the portal closed, we transitioned to high school recruiting. Not that we weren't recruiting high school kids during the portal window, but the emphasis is just in another place. And so then spent a couple weeks going out to see some high school kids, and then once we got to February, then we're all here every day with the guys that we have. The only recruiting stuff we did after that, we had a couple of junior days, but that's done now as well. So we're all here every day with our guys.
And Coach, a follow-up on that one, too. When Coach Fickle was on Wildy and Tausch, he mentioned that the portal period, about how aggressive you guys were right off the jump. I mean, I know every program wants to do that, especially with how quick things move. But from your perspective, again, the attack that you guys had, especially after going after Colton Joseph, too, and landing him pretty quickly. The whole process, again, from your perspective, what was that like from a recruiting standpoint once the portal opened this year?
I think we did a good job. Sorry, I'm trying to get out of the sun.
That's all right. We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Yeah. I thought we did a good job being ready to go. It's really, the process started for us even before we finished this season, knowing that we were going to have some holes to fill and knowing that we were going to have significantly greater resources than we had in the past. We understood what our charge was, and that was to go and recruit a team and upgrade our talent and experience and depth at all positions, at least on offense. And so we started that process early, taking a little bit of time each week to look at some guys that either had given some inclination that they were going to get in the portal, or maybe we just felt like they might be a portal entry. And then after the season was over, that was all day, every day. It was from early in the morning until we went to bed each night. We were talking with current players about retention and making decisions about the sort of contracts that we were willing to offer some of the guys that we wanted to keep around, and talking with a bunch of agents and then eventually players as well.
Before, I want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the players that you're excited to be coaching this year, but the Senior Bowl is going on, and I know you got some guys on the offensive side in general going to the draft. Vinny Anthony, Riley Mallman being a couple of them. Has it been fun for you to be able to have that that year with them and then kind of see them try to make that next step? I know that I got a buddy who works for Seattle, was down at the Senior Bowl that saw Vinny and said he did some nice things. So it's got to be nice to see some guys you coached taking that next step.
Yeah, that's a big part of what we do. We're in the development business, and we're trying to develop young men, and a big part of that is helping them reach their goals. And, everybody wants to play in the NFL. Everyone doesn't get to, but that's their dream. And so anything that we can do to help them get there is a big part of why we're in this business. And, Coach Fick and I and a couple other guys went down to the Senior Bowl and watched a practice, and then we went to the East-West game that night. We had 4 guys in that game. And for me, an added bonus was my son was there. My son is a long snapper who just finished his career at BYU. He was at Baylor before that with me. And then, so he was in the game. So it was pretty cool. I got to be there for him as well. So yeah, but it's always a cool experience when you get to see those guys doing well when they're in this phase of life.
Yeah, Jeff. Again, just talking about the season that you guys had. First one. What was it like getting that first season under the belt? What'd you learn? I mean, and honestly, too, I know no offensive coordinator, let alone any team, is prepared to go through 4 different quarterbacks in a season. But again, the challenges and how you rose to the occasion. What'd you learn most about yourself? What'd you learn the most about this unit that you have as a whole team?
That's a good question. It's not my first year doing this. I've been doing it for 32 years. I think next year will be 33 if my math is correct. And I think being flexible and versatile was one of the most important things for us this year. The injuries that we dealt with at the quarterback position were well noted, but really had a number of others that were hard to deal with too. Losing 2 left tackles in spring ball was a real challenge. We went into a couple of games with our 4th string running back and a couple of walk-ons, and that was all we really had for a couple of games, and some other spots too. But that's part of the game. But I don't know that I've been a part of a season where we struggled with it as much as we did. And I think the most important thing when you're in that position is to find a way to keep the players with you. If you lose the locker room, you lose the team, you lose the ability to even be in games. And as challenging as it was, as frustrating as it was for all of us at times, I think the one thing that I felt good about was the fact that the guys kept playing and they hung in there with us. And, we found a way to win a couple of games late and be in some others. And so, I think for me, it was just another lesson about how you have to be really flexible. And then, with our team, I think we recognized that we needed to be better. I think coaches need to be better, players need to be better. And, the commitment from Mac and the university to allow us to go out and do what we needed to do in this transfer portal window was significant. And I think we had a clear understanding of the fact that we needed to be better and understood how deep some of those holes were that we needed to fill.
And with that, obviously, there's going to be development of players that you have on this roster that you're excited about as they kind of take another year in this offense, another year with their coaching and development. And then there's probably some players coming in that you're excited to get your hands on. Any players jumping out to you, whether it's development-wise or players coming in that you're extra excited to kind of see what they can do and Badger fans should be kind of getting excited about?
Certainly. I mean, I could
go tell us about.
Yeah. Well, I could go by position. It always starts with the quarterback, and Colton is a guy that we identified as our number 1 quarterback target early on. I think you have to find a guy that's going to be the right fit for you, someone that you think will have enough interest that you could actually get this guy. There are a lot of guys out there, but is this guy recruitable? Does he fit our scheme? Is there interest on both parts? And, the whole way with him, honestly, we felt like that was the case. And he's a guy that has incredible athletic ability. He has arm talent. He's competitive. And, he's a true dual threat quarterback. He can run and he can throw and does both those things really well. I think the challenge for him is learning how to play in a system that is a little bit different than what he's been a part of. And then, maybe the hardest thing to do in the transfer portal is to get another quarterback. Everybody wants to have the opportunity to go somewhere and be the guy. But to be able to sign a second quarterback after you already have a commitment from someone who's a top-notch player that everybody is aware of is a real challenge. And so for us to go out and be able to bring in Deuce Adams from Louisville, I thought was great. I thought Kenny Guyton did a great job recruiting both of those guys. And, Deuce is a guy that's got a little bit of experience and yet still has some time in front of him for development. And so excited about them. And then, we've got a freshman coming in who we're really high on and I'm impressed with early. And then we've got 2 guys coming back who got some games under their belt last year, and Danny and Carter. Just in terms of numbers, if you look at the room that has changed the most, I mean, certainly quarterback is the one that jumps out the most, but at running back, we have Darian Dupree coming back, who I really like. I thought made a big a big step forward last year in terms of his willingness to run physical, and was hampered with a midseason injury, and he's back now and fine. But that held him back a little bit. But we've got him coming back, excited about him, and then we went and signed 3 guys. We went and got 3 guys in the portal, and all 3 a little bit different backs. Abu Sama is a guy from Iowa State that I would say is a very shifty, all-purpose back, catches the ball nice out of the backfield, can run any style of run, and has the ability to make people miss. Brian Jackson, who we recruited from USC, a bigger back, in that 235-pound range, thick, physical. He's a guy that I recruited out of high school. He's a Texas kid, and recruited him really hard to Baylor when I was there, and got to know him and his family pretty well at that time, and just really liked his skill set, and so it was kind of cool to have an opportunity to reconnect with him, and there was a natural fit there, and I think an interest on his part to be in an offense like this. And then Nate Palmer is another guy that I recruited a little bit, not quite as much as Brian out of high school, but another Texas kid. A little bit slighter than either of the other 2, but more top-end speed. And another guy that catches the ball well out of the backfield. And so, you've got 4 guys there, and 3 of those 4 guys are new. And as I said, each of the 3 new guys bring a little something different to the table. And I think we've got a room there that's going to bring a lot of competition. And that when there's competition, the cream rises to the top, and it makes everybody better. Our receiver, sorry.
Oh, no.
Do you have a question?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Keep rolling.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the receiver room. We've got 3 guys returning with some experience, although none of them had a lot of experience. You've got Chris Brooks, Tyrell Henry, and Eugene Hilton, all who played some last year, but certainly didn't have big numbers. Probably were behind some of the more featured guys, and I think I'm really excited that all 3 of them chose to come back. And there were question marks with some of the guys who are still on the team, as I talked about early. The retention piece with some of these guys was just as important as going out and signing some new guys. And then brought in 4. I think one of the things that really highlights the change in that room is size and length and catch radius. You've got 3 guys in particular who are really tall and long in that 6'3" range, plus or minus a little bit. Malachi Coleman, Shamar Rigby, and Jalen Domingo, all 3 of those guys really, really tall, long catch radius guys that all have experience. And then Zion Kearney, who is a big physical guy, not quite as long as either of those, but about 12 pounds, something like that. And, a guy that was a sub 1100 meter guy in high school too. So he's got top end speed. I would say, you're going to see a lot of new guys in that room as well, and a nice competition between new guys and the guys who came back to earn a greater role and more targets this year. I think also vying for touches at tight end, brought in 2 new guys, Ryan Schwindeman and Jacob Harris, both really, really talented receivers who will need to show that they can block and become all-purpose players as well, but both guys who can really run and catch. And then, we've got some guys coming back again who I would say played a little bit last year. Grant Steck and Emmett Bork was a guy who was a freshman that spent most of his time on the scout team, but both talented guys that we like. Tyler Janzi is a guy that we think could be a fullback for us. And then in the offensive line, you've got some guys who played some last year. Emerson Mandel sort of leading that group with starts in every game, and a guy that I thought really came on the latter part of the year. I thought the last, maybe third of the season played his best football, and I thought it was significantly better than prior to that. He's a guy that can play guard or tackle. Colin Cubberley started about half the games for us at guard, and I thought he got better as the season went on. Ryan Corey played some for us at center. And then Kevin Haywood is a guy that we sort of had penciled in as a potential starter going into spring ball last year at tackle, and then got hurt early. But he's doing great now and back full speed, and is really excited about this season. And then we went and got 5 transfers. Brought in Austin Kowecki, a guy that played center at Oklahoma State last year, played at a really high level. I like what I'm seeing from him so far. Blake Cherry is a guy that played for Eric Mateos at Arkansas, and a guy that we recruited at Baylor as well. Really like him as a guy that could probably play all 3, but will really be in the mix to compete for a starting guard spot this year. Took the guys from a Division II school that I really like. I think it was a sleeper, Styles Blackman, who is also playing guard for us right now, competing there. And then PJ Wilkins, who played more guard at Ole Miss, could play guard or tackle, is spending more of his time at tackle with us right now. And Lucas Simmons from Florida State, who's also a tackle. So a lot of competition in that room, similar to what I said about the wide receiver room, in that you've got a nice blend there between some guys coming back for another season and a new role, competing with some new blood in the room.
Coach, that was fantastic, and I know you got a busy day. We were told you got to kind of get moving here, so we appreciate you taking the time and really getting Badger fans super excited about some of the additions and the growth that'll be on this Badger roster. We appreciate it.
No, I'm glad to do it, and I'm really excited about what we have. And somebody was asking me yesterday about what a challenge this is going to be when you've got this many new guys, but honestly, it's not a lot different than it was last year. Last year, when I got here about this time, I was teaching a whole new staff and 50 players on offense who had no concept of what I was talking about. And now we're only doing that with half of the offense. But we will be different. We've got a new talent group coming in, a new skill set at every position. And so, a big part of what we're doing right now is just really looking at how we're going to build around these players the best, and how we can build a system that really focuses on their talent. The very first thing that we did when everybody got off the road from recruiting is we watched an evaluation tape, not really a highlight tape on each player, but maybe a 20 to 30 play video cut up on each player on our offense that sort of showed his skill set at their best and their worst. And then my charge to us as a staff is to, now we see who we have, now let's build a system around these guys. I think the name of the game in college football is that nowadays. We could say that this is our offense and these guys got to fit into these square pegs, but I think being flexible and versatile certainly plays in your favor if you can do that when you have so many moving parts every year now.
Yeah, no, Coach, we're excited. We're excited to see some of the players you talked about. We're excited to see what this team can do, and best of luck. Hopefully we'll catch up during fall and spring camp.
Okay, sounds good. Good to see you guys. Let me know if I can do anything for you anytime.
Appreciate it, Coach.
That's Badgers offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes. This is The Jump Around, a Badger-dedicated show on ESPN Madison and ESPN Milwaukee's YouTube stream.